We are back with another Wild Ones podcast, the show where we chat about bike stuff. I am Jimmy, and this week I am joined by producer Emily.
Hello.
And Francis CADE.
Hello.
And thanks to Garmin for supporting the podcast and helping us to bring you shows like this for free.
Francis, you're live from a remote, undisclosed location.
Area 52. I have a new microphone, which I'm carefully checking to make sure it doesn't turn itself off. I'm a bit paranoid about it. But it's nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you as well.
You're back in Area 52? Area 52.
Airy? What do you mean airy?
We had this conversation in the last podcast.
Oh, well, that's why I can't remember.
Exactly. Deleted instantly.
Yeah, so if you're listening and the sound sounds a little bit different, then that's the reason why. It's our first time at this, so be gentle.
If it doesn't sound different, then can you commend Emily on how fantastic a job she's done?
I don't think I've done anything. I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
This is all Emily's hard work. It always is. Anything, the podcast being good is 100% down to Emily, 0%.
I mean, I'll take
me
it.
and
I'll
Jimmy.
take it, but I'm not sure that's true. I think you guys have done a lot. You've both. We've all played our parts. Well done, team. Handshakes all around. Virtual handshakes.
Well done. Well done, everyone.
So, should we actually do some news and things then?
Yeah, let's get on with it.
So first up, the UCI just brought in a new rule that says that everyone has to ride a 56 centimetre bike and wear size 12 shoes. Of course, that is jest. That is not what they've done, but they are about to start trialling a ban on huge gears. So this could be bad news for SRAM, or at least that is what the media outlets out there are leading us to believe. So let's get into it. So essentially, the new rule is limiting the maximum distance a bike can travel through one pedal rotation in the hardest gear, and they're limiting it to 10 meters and 46 centimeters. So that is the rough equivalent of a 5411 or 4910. So SRAM's standard cassette, the smallest cog on it is a 10 tooth, and the cranks that they currently offer for sale would mean that a professional bike racer would have to run a 4835 if they are limited to SRAM-only products. So the reason pros are obsessed with big chain rings is an efficiency thing, and it is definitely a pro thing. It's one of those marginals that they have an obsession with, and essentially the bigger the chain rings, the less the chain is bending, the more efficient it is. So it's one of those things that they are always looking to try and do. So effectively what this means is that SRAM riders that have to use SRAM products will have a smaller chain ring on the front. The chain will be bent more, and technically it is slightly less efficient than the than the Shimano riders.
Serrano?
Yeah, than the Shimano riders with bigger chain rings.
Wait, what's Serrano? Is that ham?
I believe so, yeah.
Doesn't sound very efficient. I feel like when I listen to this, I feel like that meme of Out of the Hangover where he's in the casino and all of the numbers are just going around his head. Is this bad news for SRAM? Is it the end for SRAM? What does it mean, Jimmy?
No, it's not at all. It ultimately means that some professional bike racers will be frustrated that they have a slightly less efficient drive chain, but even for the pros, it will be unbelievably marginal. There will definitely be some people in the comments that say, no, it's a big deal. It isn't a big deal. But will we see SRAM make some other products? Will they let their riders use non-SRAM products so they can get slightly different setups? Perhaps. But really, I don't think it's that a big deal. Where do you stand on it, Francis?
Does it affect TTs, or is it just road racing?
So I believe
road bikes?
it's just road racing, and at least for now, time trialing is unaffected.
Okay. Well, yeah, because a lot of the TT riders who really push big gears, they want such massive chain rings. It's insane. If it's for road, I guess it's less of a big deal. But there's definitely going to be some people annoyed with it because I think that 10 sprocket is it's so twisty for the chain to get around. Like, it does affect the efficiency. Not that it would matter to anyone normal. But it is what it is. It reminds me of junior racing. You have to do so at the start, you're limited even more as a junior to what gears you can run. I'm not sure exactly of the reasoning. Maybe it's a speed thing, race speed thing, or maybe it's to protect the riders in some way, in a physiological sense. I'm not sure.
I think it is that.
Yeah, but they do like a reverse you reverse your bike like a roll back, I think they called it. So the commissaire will make sure all the juniors are not riding gears so big, because there's a few different combinations you can have. And then like the junior cassettes that you could get were massive fat cassettes with like just one gear change each, one tooth in between each of the gear sprockets. So yeah, just reminds me of that for adults.
So I guess the people that are going to have the biggest issue are sprinters, because it effectively means they're not going to be able to put bonkers big gearing on. So we might actually see, if this does stick, that actually the fastest people on bikes are the ones that can do the highest cadence, rather than necessarily the biggest amount of power.
Yeah, interesting. It seems to be strange. What's the reasoning behind, like, why have the UCI done this? Was it a speed thing?
Yeah, safety, I think. Like
Which
all
seems so
things.
silly to me. I just think it's such misplaced energy when crashes are caused by, almost always it's like a surprise pothole or an animal running out or a person dragging or putting a cardboard sign in the middle of the race or a bit of road furniture that hasn't been removed properly. It's always surprise stuff like that.
Or one of the cars.
Or a car,
team car
or
just
a
in the
big
road.
inflatable barrier like collapsing on the peloton. It's never, it's almost always that. And I suppose limiting speed, but at such high speeds, the crashes, if it's going to be happening anyway, it just seems like a ridiculous use of energy and misplaced. The thought process, I just don't quite get.
It's interesting you say that, because we actually had an unpopular opinion this week that I was going to include later, but it's relevant to now, so it's moving up the list. It's from Ava, and she says, unpopular opinion, with the recent UCI changes being motivated by rider safety, I keep wondering why the UCI doesn't tackle some easy fixes that seem obvious to me. For example, have foam pads and nets on fast corners of descents. Install chicanes on fast descents to slow riders down.
Ooh.
Have 2 sets of barriers at the sprint finish, one made of foam and then one further back where the public stands. It does require some work to set up, but if downhill mountain bike races organisers can do it, I don't see how road racers with their vastly superior budgets could not.
Particularly in the finishing straights, I can see bike races do install padding sometimes, but there's so many times you see crashes around corners and the riders go straight into a hard metal barrier. In fact, I've crashed into one. It's not very nice. So surely like a bit of effort, instead of putting effort into stuff like this, put effort into just putting some soft shit around the corners. She's totally right. It's so obvious.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, in this article from Bike Radar that's brought up the new gearing changes, they have a line saying that Wout van Aert and Chris Froome have called for gearing restrictions before to curb the use of increasingly big chain rings in the peloton. They're basically saying slowing it down will make it safer. So there's clearly debate, and even the pros. I mean, Wout van Aert is on Team Visma bike. They ride SRAM. Maybe he'll regret saying that now that he knows that it's marginally affecting them. If you want to see it that way, but it's interesting. There doesn't seem to be one pool of thought here, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think, off the back of this, that SRAM will start supplying teams and, I suppose, releasing to the public, even though it will probably just be out of stock all the time, like some of these products are, a cassette with an 11 sprocket on?
I'm not sure. I think they are going to be pretty committed to the way they design their products, and they're not going to want to change that. I think for the SRAM-sponsored teams, they're probably going to tell them to suck it up and just deal with it. And I would imagine quite a few, like the bike racers, like someone like Pogacar. I'm not, someone like Pogacar, for example. If you gave him a different setup that technically was a bit less efficient than another one, he's going to go, I don't care, I'm still going to win.
Yeah.
There are going to be bike racers that want all of the marginal bits because they need them, but the best riders in the world, they're not going to care. They're just going to be like, right, yeah, well, I'm doing my training, I'm doing my thing. This is what I've got, because they're used to just riding what they're given anyway. Really, they're just going to go and bash it.
He was riding a probably not that fast Colnago for a long time.
Exactly.
Well, before we move on from this section, I wanted to mention that the UCI has provided more clarity around their handlebar rules. Sorry if you're sick of hearing about this, but it does rumble on. They haven't come back on it. That was my prediction that they'd roll it back, but no, they're 10 toes down and they've given more clarity on it. Which means you can actually get your hood slightly narrower than we initially thought.
Right. That was a big error in the calculation, I think, and looked a bit embarrassing for the UCI, along with their diagram of the shifters being installed in the wrong place. So at least they've gone back on that bit, but this still disproportionately affects female riders and smaller riders. So I think it's still silly.
Correct. Agreed. And there has been even more letters and organisations, the Cyclists Alliance, which is sort of a group that acts on behalf of the female peloton. They've written a letter, and yeah, it's still kicking off, I guess. British Cycling have apparently said that they're not going to implement the changes on handlebar width or wheel depth above 65 mil. So, good news if you race in this country.
Yeah, are they, except for their official UCI events, but I suppose
there's not that many, is there?
There's not that
if
many.
Any,
no,
really.
So usually they're just adopting the UCI's rulings because it's the easy thing to do, and at least it matches up most of the time. But they don't have to.
Yeah,
interesting.
What I would say is that source came from Swanyer Tim Allen via Instagram. He was saying he had spoken.
Oh, he was really upset. Have you watched some of his clips
Yes.
about it? Because he's obviously, it's not just a bike fitter. He runs a bike brand too, and they've obviously carefully looked at the UCI rules and tried to make a product which is as fast as it can possibly be while also being comfortable for people. You know, he's really put effort into this, and these rules have completely made things very difficult for him. But I suppose this British cycler, he's mainly selling bikes to Brits, and if they're unaffected, then happy days for him. I'm sure he'll be very happy with this change.
If you put your right arm out, it gets in my camera.
Oh, soz.
Well, no, I don't think it's an issue.
It's right. You can crop him in a little bit if it's.
Well, I don't think it's going to be an issue because it's you're only going to be gestating. Is that the right word? When you're talking,
gesticulating.
When you're talking, rather
now
than
I'm
when
going to
I'm
start
talking.
doing it when you're talking now as well.
Well, you're hilarious, aren't you? Can we get on with this? I want to go home.
Yeah, in front of his face. No one wants to see Jimmy. Next up, a new US men's pro cycling team is coming. It's being launched by former US pro George Hincapie. If you don't know him, he was Lance Armstrong's domestique. His team will be called Modded Adventure, and they'll be riding factor bikes. Former World Tour pros Alex Howes and Joey Roskopf, along with former US domestique pro Ty Magna, will serve as the team directors. And Hincapie says it's an effort to reignite American cycling and a platform for US riders to compete at the highest levels.
We are here to invigorate US cycling by recruiting America's top talent, giving them the support, the pathway they need to make it to the top of our sport, and then going after riders from all over the world.
He hopes the team will be racing in the Tour de France in 5 years or less. Great goal. They officially launch in 2026 and will be seeking UCI Pro Team status for the first season. That's the rung below World Team, so the likes of Premier Tech, Lotto, UnoX, Tudor, etc. Are they the official names? I'm just reading. I'm Ron Burgundying this. Are those? I thought it was. I'm out of the loop. I thought it was Pro Conti World Tour. I suppose these are the official names from the UCI based on Emily's excellent research.
I hate when you challenge me because then it makes me second guess myself. I believe, according to, I got that off Pro Cycling Stats, they know their stuff.
It's probably correct, and I'm just using old terminology.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I think that's what it is. It probably was because I thought it was World Tour as well, but when you go on there, it says UCI World Team and UCI Pro Team. So I believe that's at least now the up to date official rhetoric.
But no, interesting news. They're great for the USA because there's so many cyclists out here, and people want to watch it. I know that for sure, and they want to see it on their home roads. So there would definitely be a lot of interest. I'm not sure. It's just all. I often struggle with the idea of riders who have had links to
Lance Armstrong,
shady behaviour. Lance Armstrong. Still having such a big prominence in the sport. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I would probably say, where can you not find that?
It's totally true.
Is there an example of someone that used to be involved in cycling pre-2005 that hasn't been busted at some point that You know, like there's loads of people in the back of teams, the management, the staff, all of that kind of stuff that have histories. So, and I think this is one of the problems with cycling and people's trust in cycling. The problem with this team is they have very good intentions, and I hope it does well for cycling in general. But they're going to be battling the shadow from day one, aren't they?
Well, but that's the same with EF. Vortas runs EF, similar situation, I suppose, and people still get behind EF, and it's fine. And most people don't know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before. UAE, there's things, You're right. There's a difference, I guess, between, because if you even look at like commentary and stuff like that, you've got, I don't know, David Miller, who's on ITV, where I think you are hard pressed to, if you want someone to come in who has raced in that race, retired, and can now dedicate themselves to either the commentary or the back end staff. They're potentially probably going to come with some kind of past, I guess.
And a lot of these people are very outspoken about doping, and they want it reformed, and they kind of advocate for a clean sport. But I guess that is obviously the stance you would take. There's just so many people still involved in the teams. I think there must be a line. Like, I'm not saying forgiveness should always be an option. People do bad things, but they're not necessarily bad people. And they're going to want to get jobs, and they love cycling. So somewhere in the cycling industry, there's going to be a place for them, and that's great. But sometimes when they're literally at the front of teams, that's where the issue comes in.
But I think only from a PR perspective, really, because as long as WADA are doing their thing, which they're famous for doing very well, then,
Very well, did you say?
Jesting at that, yeah.
Okay.
But, like, at the end of the day, there's WADA out there doing all of their testing, and just because someone has doped in the past doesn't mean that they're going to dope now. And I would imagine that a lot of people that did dope in the past would just kind of, they weren't necessarily driving it, but were kind of like, oh, well, this is just what I have to do. This feels a bit wrong, but I want to be a professional cyclist. So I definitely think there is space to allow people that have been caught in the past. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have encouraged their riders or whatever to do it because they did it in the past. But I don't know. It's just, in cycling, everything is about doping. In all other sports, as we've discussed before, there is as many, if not more, people getting caught for doping, but no one cares. It's just, I don't know. Where do you draw the line between safety and having an enjoyable sport? It does feel like cycling gets it worse than other sports.
Oh, a lot of the fans of other sports just don't care. If you look at American football, there was some bonkers stat that I read when I was having an argument with someone about how clean it is, and I looked it up, and it's like 80% of the athletes had served a ban or something crazy. So it just kind of happens, and then it's not even news.
You're both doping sympathizers. That's what I'm hearing.
We're just trying to, provide the other side of the argument.
I know. It's the eternal argument. I feel like we've had it before. I think that, especially from the commentary side of it, some people do not want, and this happens in football as well, they don't want to listen to commentary or analysis from people who haven't lived it. You know what I mean? Like they want ex-footballers commentating on football, or an ex-racers commentating on racing.
Well, they provide some amazing insight, don't they?
Exactly.
There's no denying that. If you listen to the commentary from someone like David Miller, it's fantastic, and he comes out with things you don't think of unless you've been a bike racer.
Mm-hmm. And that intel also, I presume, serves on as a positive if you're on the backroom staff of a team as well. In terms of you can provide valuable race insight as well. So I imagine that's why they're desirable. Whether you agree with it or not is up to you, I would say. If you don't want to listen to ex-pro racers talk about the Tour de France, then you should definitely tune into our pro show.
We have very few shady links to the past.
Very few. I like how you don't say none.
Well, you're the only person associated to us that was an elite racer, so that would only fall onto you then, I guess.
Oh yeah, true. No, I think I was pretty clean.
Well, moving on anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
A caffeine pill's allowed.
it's sort of moving on, but it's also sort of not moving on because meanwhile, there has been more doping stuff kicking off. And out of fear of being sued or assassinated, I'm just going to stick to the report here, okay?
Very wise.
So, a German publication called ARD, ARD, has alleged that a staff member at Ineos Grenadiers had links to a blood doping ring that was busted in 2019, but that he never faced charges. So, German sports doctor Mark Schmidt was jailed for nearly 5 years for spearheading this forbidden program for athletes between 2012 and 2019. Others were arrested as part of Operation Ardalas, including athletes, mainly skiers. In fact, the police literally walked in on one of them mid-transfusion at the Nordic World Ski Championships. But ARD claims that 14 other people suspected of being either members or customers of that doping network escaped punishment. And the reason for that was because their suspected crimes happened outside of the statute of limitations, which is essentially a legal deadline for bringing a claim to court. So ARD suggests that most of these people were in cycling and that one still works at Ineos Grenadiers, which at the time would have been Team Sky. Apparently, when the doctor's phone was seized, there were messages where the Ineos staffer introduced Schmidt to a suspected doping dealer. The doctor later recommended that dealer to his clients. And I'm going to read now word for word part of the ARD report. It reads, "The man was also part of the team when Chris Froome dominated the sport almost at will and won the Tour de France 3 times in a row from 2015 to 2017. There are no reasonable grounds for suspicion against Froome in connection with this person or Team Sky." So the Ineos employee did not respond to ARD's request for comment, and Ineos Grenadiers also said no comment. So I don't think that we can say anything more about that. It'll be interesting.
I was about to ask that.
No, I mean, shaky grounds. All we can do is, ARD, they have a dedicated doping investigations team. I think that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're really into it. I think maybe it's a sports publication. I don't know that much about it.
Can we make friends with them?
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I don't know if they want to be friends. Yeah, sure, why not?
I don't mean like go for a picnic. I mean get like, I don't know, some inside scoops, and we can put them out on the podcast.
Yeah, we can tell them how much we love cycling infrastructure in Germany. That was also a contentious topic from last week. Everyone, do you know what I've realised? Because Benny, our new CADE media friend, I don't know what to call him, our new producer, his wife Steffi is German, and we said to her about mentioning how much we liked the Berlin cycling infrastructure, and she was like, "What? It's terrible. Everyone dies. It's so dangerous." And I was like, "No, it was great." But then we feel like that about the UK, and what I have realised is we maybe all see the worst in what's around us, and maybe when you don't have as much context, maybe we're all like kind of shaped a little bit by our media in that we see these reports about people dying and stuff, and it makes you more fearful. Whereas if you remove that context, also maybe rose-tinted glasses of being on holiday or whatever it is. But, I remember when Benny came here, the first thing he was like, "Oh, the roads are so safe. Everyone follows the rules. It's so amazing here." And we were like, "Really? You're talking about England?" And, we go to Germany and we experience the same thing. So I guess what I've learned is that
fear is bad.
Fear is bad.
Benny's from India. I did a lot of riding with Benny in India. And even then, I don't know, because I'm on what feels like a holiday, I suppose, because I'm there experiencing a new thing. You're traveling. And even though the traffic is absolutely crazy, I convinced myself it's really, really it's all right. Everything flows like water and you don't even have to look when you go out. But we didn't see any serious accidents. I think as soon as you did see, it would change your opinion big time.
True.
I can see why he is pleasantly surprised and less stressed driving around Newcastle.
This is it. He's in his honeymoon period as well. He told me he was watching YouTube videos of how to go around a roundabout because he kept getting beeped at and he wasn't sure why.
He's going to probably be better than most of the drivers in the Northeast.
This is it, exactly, yeah.
After that research.
Okay, I think we've talked around that topic enough. Time to move on.
Before we round up the news, there's a conspiracy theory going around in the comments of a video we posted last week about Canyon's latest bike release. And we thought we'd address it. If you didn't see it, we reviewed the new £950 Endurance All-Road. Did I get the price wrong on the thumbnail of that video? Could I put £949?
Yeah, but I just rounded it
up. Was I a
up.
pound wrong? You rounded it up. Was I right?
Yeah.
It's a pound. Calm down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, exactly. It can't be a big deal. Although if it was wrong, it looks like a little intentional mistake that people will then comment on.
So, Francis, I wrote it as £950 to just make it a little bit more succinct so that it wasn't, it didn't take as much time to read out on the podcast. But you bringing that up has now made it.
Francis is now going, is that what the controversial thing was? It was a pound out.
No, the real conspiracy is that we were secretly sponsored by Canyon to make that video because it went live at the same time as GCN's version, and Canyon are one of their sponsors. And yes, it's not a coincidence that both went live at the same time. No, as we said in the video, we didn't get anything off Canyon. It wasn't sponsored. We weren't paid in cash or product, and they got zero say over how we made that video or what we said about the bike. And to be honest, if I was Canyon, I'd be very upset if I had paid for a video and then we had a go at them about the bar width, which we did.
We went hard as well.
So we wanted to explain what's actually going on.
Yeah, so what happens with almost all tech releases is that they're put under a press embargo. We have spoken a little bit about this, but I'm going to make it much clearer. So it's essentially when unreleased information gets shared with you, but the source of that information, so in this case Canyon, will request that you don't publish it until a certain time and date. The information might be images and the specs of a new bike, or it might be the official lineup for celebrity traitors, or it might be details about an upcoming press conference Donald Trump's going to give. It's not just a bike industry thing, it's standard practice across all sectors of the press. The reason organisations put embargoes on stuff differs, but for tech, it's usually that they don't want anything leaked before their official launch date. So whereas we were doing an independent review of the bike and GCN, I guess we're doing an advert or it's somehow tied to an advert. I don't know. Either way, it still can only go live at that embargo date.
Well, we could post it later, but it would be shooting ourselves in the foot because you want it to be alive for as long as possible,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. And there's generally a little bit of competition between all types of online media to be the first to publish because with written journalism, it's always thought that you do better in Google searches. I guess potentially you do better on the YouTube algorithm if you're the first to publish, whereas actually the embargo kind of gets rid of that competition there. Embargoes are not a legally binding thing. All the person or organisation can do is ask nicely to hold off publishing until a certain time. But generally, they tend to be observed because respecting a simple request like that is what gets you access to the information in the first place. If you started breaking embargoes, you are very quickly going to be blocked out of knowing stuff in the future.
Yeah, just get cut off then, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So the question is, why are we making these kinds of videos in the first place if the brand's not paying us and we don't get a shiny new bike at the end of it?
Because people want to watch them.
Yeah.
We're in the business of making videos that people want to watch, hopefully. YouTube pays us in AdSense. So like the adverts that you watch at the start of a YouTube video, that's the majority of our income, I believe, unless Jimmy wants to correct me.
No, that is the majority.
Which is awesome. Something that media in the past hasn't had access to. You know, there hasn't been a platform that pays, significantly for just people watching it. So I think that's really good.
And, we'll have said years ago that the goal for CADE was to have as few sponsors as possible. And now we only have 2 actual channel sponsors, which is Garmin and Atticus, which you will see regularly throughout our stuff and are heavily involved in the sponsorship of the content that we produce, which we would like to think that, our audience don't mind because it allows us to do everything else without compromising what we're doing, such as bike reviews, such as First Looks.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine there'll very occasionally still be a one-off sponsors. Sometimes that might be a bike brand, but I think you'll agree with me, Jimmy. We want to avoid that if possible. Like in an ideal world, it would be a watch company or travel agents or tourist board or something like that sponsoring. So it's just completely removed from bikes. That would be an absolute ideal situation. But then if we want to grow and for example, we have salaries to pay, then there's only so many things on the table at one time. And if the timing works, then, it will fit and it's a bike brand, then, we will consider it.
Yeah, but what we don't consider it for is the first look format. We've designed
Correct,
that format,
never for first look.
and what we said is we do not charge brands for that. So yes, you could see it as free advertising, but what that does is, like, ultimately coming back to your point of we're in the business of making videos people want to watch. So our focus always has to be on quality of video. Reviews have always been a popular format. If you think of the days of like music reviews when CDs and records were a physical thing, they service people, they give people information so that they can decide if they have got money to spend where they put that money, because you wouldn't be able to know what a £1,000 bike or £2,000 bike rides like without buying it. So it's kind of giving people that information. It doesn't take a genius to work out that the best quality review, the one that's going to ultimately get the most watches and the format that's going to be most trusted and people keep coming back to, is an independent one where you can say whatever you want. So that is why we kind of like, we need these to be independent of sponsorship from the product that we're talking about. So for example, if we were to get a one-off deal to do a video around a bike, that would not be a first look format. We would design another type of video where that goes in.
It would most likely be a bikepacking trip, like they have sponsored them previously.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and we say this is sponsored. I think like we don't need to hide it. We try not to hide it. There's no. We don't gain anything from hiding it.
I would like to think that we're really clear about this, because we even say stuff. We say when stuff is sponsored, we also say when stuff isn't sponsored.
Yeah.
Because we work on the basis of the more information the audience get, the clearer we are with that, the more reliable it is.
I wish we didn't have to say things weren't sponsored, but that's the way things are, because I guess a select few have ruined things in the past. And not just in cycling, like it's just people taking money and then not declaring things and then getting in trouble for it, I suppose.
People are so mistrustful, aren't they?
People lose trust. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, interesting you talk about the word review. And in my opinion, the definition of review should be, you could only use the word review if it's an unsponsored, completely unbiased. Well, nothing's completely unbiased, but as non-biased as possible review of something. Whereas anything that is paid then becomes a different product, doesn't it? The video is a completely different thing. Gerald Undone, who's a camera YouTuber who I watch, that does this really well. He's sponsored by a light company, Amaran, which make all these like fancy lights that you use for camera work. And often most of his videos are reviews, unsponsored. And then when he does cover an Amaran product, because they've got loads of stuff behind him, they're always in his videos, which I think is great and should be allowed. He calls it an enthusiastic overview, and he makes it very clear at the start of those videos that is what this is. So I think the most important thing is just signposting and making it obvious to the audience. However, there's always going to be some conspiracy people in the comments, I suppose. And you just have to go, or put a section in a podcast like this where we explain things better and hopefully bring them around and show them that we're they don't need to be cynical. We're trying to do things the right way.
No, totally. And again, we have said before we don't look at the comments, and we are talking about a comment, and I understand it's probably a small minority, but I think what we want to do it right. I'm not saying we are always perfect. I think especially in the beginning, maybe we were like, what is the best way to signpost? And we've since kind of set up rules for ourselves. For example, we need to say we need to say as soon as it is appropriate that it is sponsored, we now put a little banner up. It's like we had to set up some of those rules for ourselves. But we definitely don't have the intention to try and mislead. And I think it's good to keep an open dialogue and almost keep self-regulating and try and be as transparent about that as possible. I guess it's ultimately the only thing we have is trust with our audience. If they don't trust, if we think we're being shady, our channel cannot grow. And if our channel goes away, the sponsors go away. If the sponsors went away, but we still have our audience, we can still sustain this business and keep making money. So it's viewers are key, and that's why I think that it's good to have this conversation and keep having these conversations and let people know our workings out, I guess.
But also, there is another reason that clearly shows the video wasn't sponsored by Canyon, was the fact that the video was sponsored by one of our channel sponsors, Atticus, as per the ad read in it at like 6 minutes 38 or whatever it was. There's literally an advert for our channel sponsor in that video.
Yeah, there is.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I had to change the intro because, they'll put their little declaration explaining that a video is sponsored or not sponsored at the start. And the wording I'd used originally was, this video is not sponsored, we're not being paid, blah, blah, blah. I had to change it to, this video is not sponsored by Canyon, because I didn't realize we were putting the advert in until after I'd filmed all of that. So it's those little tweaks and making things clear. But I can see, like, that I could have missed that, and that could have been a mistake. And then everyone's like, oh, you are liars. And it's just, it takes some consideration and thought to actually get these things right. So thank you, everyone, for patience sometimes.
True.
And understanding.
Yeah, the sort of final thought on this is, we are big enough now that we could get into huge trouble with the Advertising Standards Authority if we're caught not declaring paid partnerships. And they consider paid partnerships, payment can be in cash or it can be in goods. So, for example, if we say we're not being paid, but we're keeping the bike at the end of it and it gets to go in Francis's nice bike collection, it's still payment. And that would be the same with a group set or whatever. It's like a special monetary value. If we end up destroying an inner tube or something and we end up keeping that, technically we've cost them, a tenner in an inner tube. That probably would be allowed it, but it's like, significant monetary value. They would consider a paid partnership, and it has to be signposted very, very clearly. You can't have it right down the bottom of your description. It has to be, as soon as you start talking about the product, it has to be signposted if it is paid for. And the brand would get in trouble too. So, I mean, we work with brands that are big enough that they know this as well. They know that they can't get away with being naughty, dodgy, sly anymore kind of thing. So it's in no one's interest to hide it from you. We're doing ad reads at the start of all of this podcast. You have to listen to it. And as we say, it's what allows us to keep things free to watch rather than behind a paywall. So that's that. Can you still hear him?
I can still hear.
Sorry, I thought it had gone off. I'd just gone deaf in one ear.
Maybe it's earwax.
And it's why we, I talk about our audience being important to us, but it's absolutely everything. The only thing we care about is you guys watching and listening this. And we want to make content that you want to watch and are entertained by and enjoy. And if a brand, I say this to brands all of the time, there isn't an amount of money they can offer us to compromise what we are trying to build and what we are trying to do. There is not an amount of money. And as painful as it would be to say no to anyone coming out and go, we'll give you £5 million to advertise this thing, I'm still going to say no, as much as I would regret that at 85 years old on my deathbed. I still would regret it, but also be happy that I turned it down. My point is, we only care about you guys, and that's what's important to us.
And we would say no to 5 million, and we definitely wouldn't change your opinion for the price of a plane ticket to a place we don't want to go to. Like when it's those press trips and stuff, like that's the worst. Or I from the outside, it might look like, oh, but they get to go there, and that's like swaying your opinion, and they're showering you with a lovely hotel. It's like, I don't want to go there. If I want to go on holiday, I'm going on holiday to where I want to go without. Probably maybe with a bike, but definitely without a camera. So, sorry, press trip.
Yeah.
Invites. Just send us a PDF and a bike.
Yeah, I think some people think that if you're not completely dumping on a product, then you're secretly in the pocket of the brand. But the thing is, we discuss so much tech on this channel that I think it would also be disingenuous if we never said anything was good unless we were being paid for it.
Most of it's good.
Well, this is it.
Bikes are really, really, really good now. So we're going to say they're mostly good. I mean, I was plucking at straws. Is that term?
Plucking at straws.
Plucking at straws. It sounds about right. With the bar width on the canyon, like I suppose it is a fairly small deal, and a lot of people would even disagree with me. And it's like, I don't care. You're wrong. They're too wide for really small riders to be riding on that the canyon video we just made.
You say that, but loads of our comments agreed with us. I noticed on Canyon's posts on Instagram, there's people in the comments basically saying they've spec'd them wrong as well.
Oh,
and good. Well, at least people are starting to get it.
And I emailed the PR manager, and he said he loved the video. He understands the points that we raised, and he's having conversations internally to see if he can get some kind of official response as to why they've made those decisions.
I mean, this is why we went hard on it, because I suppose we're in a position where maybe someone at Canyon would listen to it, and it's an easy fix, you know. And it's not a bad bike. We're just saying small change. Massive benefits to riders who are not catered for very well by the bike industry, and it's such minor tweaks from a company that really can make a difference here. So I'm excited if that's the case. That's awesome. And it's sold as a road bike. Some people are arguing that because it's a gravel bike, it's more control, and it's like, well, no, because then you're going to put your hands in a different place if it's too wide for you, so you can't reach the brake. So any control gains you get, you lose. And it's sold as a road bike. It's not a gravel bike. So factor in both of those things. Bars are too wide.
Listen, I'm just surprised that no one accused you two of being secretly paid by Shimano, because that entire Canyon video is basically you two drooling all over cues.
Oh, so good.
Isn't it funny that we reviewed the 2 new SRAM fancy electric, hydraulic, lovely, futuristic space age group sets, and we were more excited about Shimano cues. And I think that's because we get excited that it's going to bring in so many more people into the sport. They'll try a bike like that Canyon, or any bike that's going to be spec'd with cues. I'm sure there'll be lots more. And they're going to have a great time and be like, wow, cycling is wicked. And I feel confident on these brakes. And the gearing's good enough. It actually could be better. As in hindsight, I wish I'd given Canyon a little bit harder time and asked them to put smaller chain rings on. Just a touch. That is picking at straws. What phrase am I trying to think of?
Clutching at straws.
Clutching at straws. Yes.
Let's wrap that up. Shall we move on to Fluff Up of the Week?
Whoa, wait there. Actually, just for clarity, we weren't sponsored and are not sponsored by Shimano or any other group set manufacturer, because that would also be a conflict to our priority to our audience.
Yes.
But now let's move on.
Fluff Up of the Week. Everyone hated my backdrop last week. It triggered people. I had several emails saying it hurt their eyes. And if you are listening to this and you don't know what I'm talking about, I would say be thankful for that based on the feedback that I received. This had a slat wall behind me, essentially. And apparently it did some sort of optical illusion. What I noticed
what was that noise? Oh, interesting.
That's the noise of the visual, Jimmy.
I get it. It wasn't good. It's behind Jimmy. It was always an interim solution. We're in the middle of unpacking.
Lots of various changes to the studio. So lots is going to change over the coming weeks.
It'll change again. Today's episode of the Wild Ones podcast is supported by Garmin.
I've actually been using Garmin bike computers and watches for well over a decade now.
Yeah, me too.
I actually bought my first one in 2012. It was the Forerunner 410, and I was training for my very first triathlon at the time.
And how did that go, Jimmy?
Well, it would have gone great if I hadn't accidentally miscounted my bike laps and got myself DQ'd for doing one short.
Rookie error. You should have used the laps function.
I know. But my point is, Garmin's have been part of our lives for a long time now. So it was a bit of a full circle moment when they came on board to support the channel.
And they don't just make watches and head units with bike-specific GPS mapping and performance monitoring.
Nope. They also make power meters, heart rate monitors, smart bike lights that capture video and alert you when cars are approaching, tax indoor trainers, and so much more.
So thank you to Garmin for supporting this podcast.
Time for some unpopular opinions. We'll read out some cycling hot takes, debate them, and decide if we agree or disagree.
Yeah, so this one wasn't sent in. I found it when I was scrolling CADE Instagram the other day, but it was so funny that I did a little screenshot and I'm going to share it with you.
How on earth do you say that name?
It's got 1,000 likes, blooming heck.
It's 1,000 likes. I don't think that was on our Instagram. I think it was somewhere else, but I screenshotted it. I don't know how to say the username. Zoogie McZoog says, amateur cycling is basically divided into two groups. The ones that think they're better than others because they wear map, pas normal, etc. And the ones that think they're better than others because they don't wear map, pas normal, etc.
It's so true.
I see. I don't.
I need to go and like this.
I disagree with this. I actually don't agree with it.
Why?
And I also think it's unfair to call it amateur cycling. It's recreational cycling.
If it's not professional, then it's amateur by definition.
Yeah, but it implies that it's sport, and a lot of people aren't doing it for sport. They're doing it as a hobby, as an interest, as a pastime, and therefore it's recreational. So, Francis, is your meme that you made, Francis, still on the CADE Instagram account?
Yeah, the bell curve.
Francis made a meme which was the bell curve, and at the top of the bell curve, I would say, is both of these people, and then at the left side of the bell curve is, I can't even remember, and the right side is really advanced cycling.
It's like beginner and expert, isn't it, at either side?
Ultimately,
I don't think it's beginner and expert. It's people who are super elitist and have to have aero everything and like look down on others because they're not roady enough. And then on the other side is almost just as bad, which is people who look down on the people who are roadies and think they're wasting their time, and they, wear jorts, which is obviously great. And I also wear jorts, but it's that kind of like, it can go bad in both directions. It can become elitist in both directions. People who really look down their nose at anyone who tries hard at anything, like you, Mr. Demotivator.
I think the important thing is do whatever you want, and you can either be fully committed to a thing, don't enforce it on other people, or you can just do what lots of other people do and just do a bit of everything. Sometimes wear tight lycra, sometimes wear jean shorts, sometimes do gravel, sometimes do
naked.
Road. Just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And if anyone says you can't, just send them my way. That's usually what I say, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you do have to be careful that you don't get into weird anti-elitism in terms of like, hate.
That's what it is.
Hate on everyone who has Dura-Race, for example. I was
It's
also
like
thinking
late stage capitalism. It's like super advanced.
Yeah, meta. I'm not sure us describing a meme is our finest point of podcasting, I'll be honest.
Oh.
But our finest moment in podcasting. But never mind. I'm also going to take these headphones off because I've got a headphone in so I can hear Francis's audio, and then I've got a headphone on top of that, and all of the headphoneception is killing my ear. So here's what my head looks like without earphones on for the viewers.
And for me.
I barely recognise you.
Yeah. So wrap us up, Francis.
Do you have an unpopular opinion? We want to hear it. Send yours to wildOnesPodcast@cademedia.co.uk, and you might feature on a future episode.
Yes, and please send us your questions for Listeners Takeover. Here is a very quick one from Tony, who says, "Hi all, love the show. Stumbled across it last year, and it's now become the highlight of my Thursday. But it got me wondering what your favourite podcasts are. Any recommendations?"
Chris Williamson, because he's was Newcastle based.
Is he a Geordie?
I think it's one of the biggest in the world. Nah, he's from the north, but not Geordie, but went to uni in Newcastle and then did club promotion. He was the first ever person on Love Island to go on the show. Yeah. And then completely like 180'd and started a very useful podcast where it's
I recognise him.
discussing different areas of expertise and some cool stuff. Yeah, I think their tagline is like something along the lines of "Life is hard. This podcast will help." So it's a bit of self-help stuff, bit of interest, sometimes just interesting chats. His video guy Dean, who is the mastermind, he's the Emily of that podcast, which is called Modern Wisdom, and he's helped us with some because we bumped into him in the cafe downstairs.
Yeah, he's class.
Of the old studio, and he's class. Yeah, so helpful with like, how we've got this audio problem and bits and bobs like that. So you guys have been chatting, haven't you? But they're just good people.
He's super cool. Their podcast visually, like the video version of it, is just unbelievable.
Delicious.
Like the crew they've got is just like, it's like a feature film but a podcast. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, Dean's an absolute legend. Super, super cool. What have you got, Emily? You listen to loads.
Yeah, at the moment I'm listening to The Rest is Entertainment. I listen to that one a lot. That's kind of TV, film and celeb culture. Sort of like from an industry perspective, it's kind of British centric, but you know, they talk a lot about Hollywood, but Marina, one of the co-hosts, she's a journalist, and Richard Osmond, who's like Pointless and written loads of books. No, he's not Pointless. He works on the show Pointless.
Savage.
So he's producer. He used to work for Endemol, which is like a big production company that makes loads of different shows. And then he kind of went front of camera, and then he became an author. So they know loads of stuff. I am so into. I mean, I used to work for like the trashy end of the newspaper spectrum, so very much TV, film, celeb is my sort of thing. The other one is Mushroom Case Daily I'm listening to at the moment. That's a live trial, which is reporting an Australian woman who basically fed her in-laws deadly death cap mushrooms in a beef Wellington, either accidentally or intentionally, depending on which side of the evidence you believe. But it's like a daily roundup of trial information. I used to do, I trained as part of my journalism training, had to do court reporting. I spent a lot of time sitting in Preston Crown Court, just listening to stories. I wanted to become a crime reporter, and I still kind of do. Maybe I'll have a career change at some point.
What do you mean? There's literally, we've been discussing crime in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dopers.
Yeah.
And I guess perhaps controversially, I don't listen to podcasts apart from ones that I hear in proxy being around Emily. But what I do is listen to a hell of a lot of music. So I think I listen to music.
I'd send you a lot of podcasts that you don't listen
Correct.
to.
You listen to we listened to The Rest is History on a trip up to Scotland last year or the year before.
Yep.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Yep. I do like history.
Yeah. So you just got to kind of corner him and offer him, spoon feed him it.
I don't dislike them. Whenever you've like put something on specifically, I've been like, yeah, okay, this is fine. But if I'm doing things, I'd either rather read if I'm just sitting down or listen to music. Maybe I should find some finance podcasts. I've never tried. Because I like news. I like financial news. I usually read it though.
I'm sure that will be available in podcast form. Everything's a
I'm
podcast now.
I'm not
Everyone has
going to like
podcast,
it in a podcast form though.
Okay.
Because it'll be like really serious and miserable.
Imagine the ad revenue on that though. Finance.
Did I tell you I nearly started a finance YouTube channel?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, that is all for this week. Thanks for listening. Subscribe if you don't. That's all. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. See you next time. Bye. God,
Bye.
damn it.
This is why Jimmy couldn't start his finance YouTube, because he couldn't get through the intro.